Greetings! Today we're going to talk about obsessions. Yes, obsessions of the Lotus Sutra. And here's what obsessions does to us. We start looking in tunnel vision. These toilet paper rolls, we used to call them to-do-to-dos when I was a kid. Know why? To-do-to-do, to-do-to-do. To-do-to-do. Hear ye, hear ye. And that's why we used to call them that. Ah, you got a smile. That's cool. Je suis vénérable Hongaku Mui Shinshi Dai Ajari. Ich heiße Venerable Hongaku Mui Shinshi Dai Ajari. We're having an international audience today, therefore I'm speaking like in foreign languages. So what are we actually doing? We're actually, wow, this camera's a little close. There we go. You still get the Buddha and Avalokiteshvara and the candle and all that. We don't have a Mahastampatra statue, so we're not quite altogether Pure Land yet. The Lotus Sutra has a lot to say about obsessions without actually mentioning it. Lotus Sutra has a lot to say about a lot of things without actually mentioning them. It's the phenomena of the Lotus Sutra. Some of my students are studying the book on Amitism. Beautiful Chinese book on Amitism and Pure Land, and they have trouble getting through the archaic language. And this is okay because we have a translator right here. That would be me. And we have another group of my students are going through Cleary's translation called The Secret of the Golden Flower, which is actually a Taoist Buddhist manual on meditation. And they're getting through some of the difficulties in language there because words are used in such a way that they don't actually make sense to the contemporary American, even though Cleary's translation is contemporary. The problem is the words. What do they mean? What do they actually mean as far as our concept of the words? Well, let's go back to Nagarjuna, who very, very wisely said, never mistake the symbol for its meanings. Just because a word says something and has a particular sound and we conventionally spell it a certain way doesn't mean that that word will have the same meaning in every context. Let's take the word love. It's interesting that Eskimos have 32 different words for snow. Why? Snow is very important to them. In English, we only have one word for love. Does that mean love's not important to us? But we have one word, love, with a whole bunch of different meanings to it. I love coffee. I love organic tobacco. I love bacon. I love my wife. I love my cats. I love Buddhism. Do I love them all in the same way? Well, of course not. They all have different meanings. So, be that as it may be. Now I'm going to try to hook this video into a group of slides that I've got going on here on a PowerPoint presentation, and I hope it works. If it doesn't, well, then you guys are, as we say in America, ass out, because you won't be able to get the lists. But we're talking about obsession in the Lotus Sutra, and on the very first slide It says that it has the Hongaku lotus on it, the logo. So incredibly well fabricated for us by Sensei Hoshin in Great Britain, the UK. And it's got a Dharma talk by and my name. And underneath it says Sensei Mui, because most people know me as Sensei Mui, except for my serious students that know me as Shaku Mui. Shaku being a very old term, Japanese and Chinese, which has to do with being a disciple of the Buddha. Shinshi means left his heart in reality or left his mind in reality, which means that, which is similar to the idea of a Tathagata, one who's gone to and returned from reality, or sees things as they are, which is only partially true. That's an aspiration. That's not really what goes on. And we'll be talking about the Lotus Sutra. And here's a very nice picture of the Lotus Sutra. A cover of the Lotus Sutra, first page of the first fascicle, called The Origin of Immeasurable Meanings, which is what we're going to talk about today, because that has a lot to do with obsessions. It has a lot to do with Buddhism in general, and what the Lotus Sutra did. And this is why the Lotus Sutra is so popular in Eastern Asia, and why Zhi Yi used it as the foundation for Tiantai, the Tendai school. And the Tendai school is generally marked out like this, in that it all comes from Shakyamuni Buddha's teaching, the historical Buddha's teaching. And the historical Buddha never spoke the Lotus Sutra as such. But the ideas in the Lotus Sutra come directly from him. And when you first read the Lotus Sutra, it sounds like science fiction fantasy. You know, you expect, sort of to expect, Sean Connery's voice in the background narrating the action with Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie. You've got to have some sex in there. And a cast of thousands, with special effects and explosions and action and all that. And it's written this way to be entertaining. And so that the meanings associated with the images will stick. And it's like, people tend to remember movies like Pulp Fiction because they're so over the top. And the message is valid, but it's presented in such a way that it's memorable. Beowulf is a movie that's not that well remembered, unfortunately. But it has a lot of special effects. People remember The Terminator because of the special effects, even though it had absolutely no socially redeeming value to it. People remember it. The Lotus Sutra is remembered because of these special effects. And as we see on this chart, I found this on the internet. I don't know where I found it. I Googled Lotus Sutra and this image popped up. And it's pretty cool, because what it does is it shows Shakyamuni in the middle. This is the origin of the teaching. Underneath and to one side, it says Tiantai, or Zhi Yi, as the founder of Tiantai. Well, he wasn't really the founder. He was the fourth patriarch. Count him, 1, 2, 3, 4. He was the fourth patriarch. Before him, there was Vasubandhu, Nagarjuna, and one of the original arahats. And of course, it was Shakyamuni Buddha that founded the Lotus Sutra school, because it's his teachings we're using. We're not using our own teachings that we kind of made up as we went along. Next to Zhi Yi, you see Dengyo. Dengyo is a nickname for Seicho, the Japanese founder of the Tendai lineage. So Tendai, same lineage. transplanted from China into Japan. And then it goes up into the later Dengyo, which can be confusing because they gave Nichiren the same name. And apparently this was created by a Nichiren devotee. Nichiren as opposed to Soka Gokkai, which will be the topic of a private discussion that I'm not going to put on video because I don't want any burning Dharma wheels in my front yard. Okay, what are the obsessions and why are they important? The obsession, there are 7 of these turkeys. They're latent tendencies, and they're referred to as anusaya. Anusaya is the Pali and Sanskrit word. Its literal translation is latent tendencies, which we call obsessions today in English. They are things that just keep reoccurring. They're themes that keep reoccurring. The first, and the way they're listed in the Pali Canon, and you find them in the Abhidhamma section in particular, where they're mentioned quite often because the Abhidhamma deals with human psychology and metaphysics. And it's interesting that the ancients, our elders, combined metaphysics and human psychology as one entity. And the Lotus Sutra explains why this is done, and we'll talk about this in a few minutes. The latent tendency that is most obvious is that for sensual pleasure. Most in the West, in particular, it's things that we see. I had somebody come up to me today and say, "Oh, it's so nice to see you in some other color besides black." Well, black is the color of my lineage. The Hongaku lineage of the Tendai school. It was incorporated into Zen, Soto Zen, and into Pure Land. Black is the color of all inclusion. It's the color. It's the combination of all colors. White is the absence of all colors. And I had to laugh about this because what is a color? A color is just a pigment that is reflected light. And so we get all excited about reflected light. So it's just a color. It doesn't mean much. It's just a color. And in our billboards, we see beautiful women, very handsome men. And they're meant to attract us because they're sensually pleasing. And all we're really being pleased by is, again, reflected light. We're pleased by sound. We're pleased by gadgetry. Wouldn't it be nice if we could spend a whole day without a laptop, a smartphone, a notebook, electronic notebook, and so forth? Wouldn't it be nice if we could sit down with some sort of hardcover or even a paperback book, a pen that we could write things with? Wouldn't it be cool if we could do that again, sort of, go back to the good old days and do things as people used to? Well, we don't. We need all this stuff. As one of my students calls it, we need all this crap to make our lives livable. And the truth is, our life doesn't become more livable, it becomes more distracted because we want all these sensual pleasures. I had a 21-year-old Swedish girl staying with us recently, and she never got away from the gadgetry. She had to have music going all the time. When she took a bath, she had to take her laptop with her and watch YouTube, do her Facebook. It was very weird. It seemed very strange. But this is that obsession for sensual delight. And one of the sensual delights that we rarely think about is the sensual obsession with ideas. Ideation is a sense. The mind is a sense, like the eye is a sense organ. the mind, senses, ideas, concepts. And we get really hung up on concepts. In the United States, we're hung up on conservatives versus liberals. And we don't even know what those words mean. What is a conservative? What makes a person a conservative? What makes a person a liberal? More ideas. More ideas, less substance. So we're very, very interested in the presentation of a thing, of a conditioned thing. We're not really interested in the substance behind it. We want to see the packaging. We don't care what's inside the package. We're impulse shoppers as far as our senses are concerned. Truly. If somebody like Angela, I'm going to pick on Angelina Jolie these days. I used to pick on Selma Hayek a lot because I really thought she was cute, but nobody remembers who she is. So let's say Angelina Jolie. If Angelina Jolie were running for president, she'd probably win. Not because of her ideas, but because of the way she looks, the way she carries herself, the roles she has played in movies. The concept of Angelina Jolie is much more important than who Angelina Jolie is at this very given moment. So that's the first and the most obvious obsession. We're obsessed with our temples. We're obsessed with the way we set up our altars. We're obsessed with the rituals that we do. And we're obsessed with things that really don't matter. It doesn't matter how I set up my altar. It doesn't matter if I set up an altar. What matters is the Dharma, the meaning behind Avalokiteshvara, Shakyamuni, or in this case, Amitabha Buddha, the candle, the light, the incense. The meaning behind those are important, not the objects themselves. Then we have the latent, and this could be called the latent obsession with attachment. Then we also have the latent obsession with aversion. Well, if you're attached to something, it's because you're avoiding something else. If I'm attached to this configuration on my altar, it's because I'm avoiding some other form of Buddhism. If I'm attached to Buddha Dharma, it's because I'm avoiding something else, like Christianity or Islam or Judaism or shamanism or Wicca, which we call Wicca over here. It means that I'm avoiding something. If I'm attaching to this cup of coffee, it means that I'm not attaching to Coca-Cola, which is probably a good thing. I'm not attaching to a lack of comfort in enjoying this delicious cup of coffee. I suppose as a Buddhist I should attach to a delicious cup of tea, right? Then there is the latent tendency of conceit. Whoa. This one is sneaky because the three conceits are, count them, 1, 2, 3, this many. 3 conceits. I am better than that person. I'm not pointing at anybody, I'm pointing at the screen. I am worse than that person. I'm not as good. Or I am the same as that person. All 3 of these are lies. All 3 of them are not true. I am not better than anyone else. I am not worse than anyone else. I'm not even the same as anyone else. I'm just different. In this present manifestation of Shakyamuni, I am simply different than anybody else. I'm not doing the same thing as anybody else. I am not saying the same thing as anyone else. I am certainly not having the same experience as anybody else is having at this moment. Even if they were doing exactly the same thing, saying exactly the same thing, their experience would be much different. So we can't say we're better than, we're worse than, or we're the same as somebody else, because that would be a falsehood. Conceit is sneaky in that low self-esteem is a conceit. It's a conceit in that nobody's as bad as I am. I'm not as good as so-and-so. Feeling poorly about yourself is just as narcissistic as feeling great about yourself. So if you're going to be delusional, have a good delusion. Feel good about yourself. Don't feel poorly about yourself. Then there's the tendency toward wrong view. It is this way and not that way. So-and-so did this to me. You made me feel like a bummer yesterday because you said blah, blah, blah. Blaming others is a wrong view. We can't blame anybody for how we feel about anything. We cannot specifically blame others for what they do to us, say to us, or think about us, because their saying, doing, and thinking are simply conditions which they are experiencing. We should feel sorry for them. We should, we really should. There, poor delusional baby. You sure are suffering today, aren't you? That would be a closer to the right view than feeling badly about what they're saying about us. A wise person never places blame. A wise person tries to understand, because that's what the word Buddha means. It means, I understand. So let it go. Don't attach. That's a wrong view. And then there's the tendency to obsess with skeptical doubt. Oh, the practice isn't working. No, dear, you're not working the practice. Skeptical doubt is only about Dharma. Skeptical doubt means that there's something in the Dharma which isn't true. The word Dharma itself means reality, truth. How can truth be not true? That's why it's an obsession, because we obsess over the idea that, well, maybe it's not true. Maybe it won't help me if I do this, so I'm not even going to try. I'm not going to give this up, because if I give this up, I can't go back to it. It's like alcoholism or drug addiction. Don't want to give up the addiction, because when you're in the addiction, you feel better. It's when you run out of whatever it is you're addicted to that you are no longer feeling good, then you become depressed. Unless you're wise, then you become depressed while you're feeling good, which seems like a lot of cognitive dissonance, but it's true. Wise people, when they do bad things or unskillful things, tend to become depressed. They go, oh man, I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm doing it anyway. Cognitive dissonance. It's also, skeptical doubt has to do with speculative thinking. How did the world begin? How old is the universe? What was there before the Big Bang? What will happen to me when I die? Where will I go? Skeptical doubt tears us apart. It's the big what if. I'm going to ask the girl out, what if she doesn't want to go out with me? What if she does go out with me and doesn't like me? What if we get in the car and the car breaks down? What do we do then? And then we start making backup plans. Then we have backup plans for our backup plans, because what if the backup plan doesn't work? So we spend all our days trying to come up with backup plans, and we never enjoy the date with a girl because we're obsessing with the what ifs, speculative thinking. Then there is the obsession, the lust for becoming. If I'm unhappy, I don't want to be unhappy. I want to be happy, so I obsess over why can't I be happy. I start looking for things to make me happy. Sometimes righteous anger will make me happy. I can become angry, rightly so, about something. There's death in Guyana. Oh my God, those poor people. I am so angry that the Guyanese government can't do something about it. Why doesn't the United Nations step in? See how that plays into speculative thought. We want things to become otherwise. We want to become happy. So we avoid being sad, and that brings in all the other latent obsessions. Because we don't like what we are, we want to become something else. We don't like what we have, we don't want what we have, we want what we don't have. Wouldn't it be simpler if it were the other way around? We wanted what we have, and we don't want what we don't have. A person who is unhappy wants to be happy. They want to become the one who is happy. The one who has no money wants to become the one that does have money. The one who is lonely wants to become the one that is desired. This constant wanting to be something that we aren't. This, by very definition, is dukkha, contemptible emptiness. We're empty of something we feel we need, and we don't have, so we want to become what we aren't. In traditional and classical Buddhism, this is also referred as the desire for immortality. I don't want to die. I want to become something. In other religions, you live a good life so you can become a saint in heaven and have a glorified body and run and hang out with angels. You know, these beautiful creatures that you're not going to do anything with them because everything apparently is illegal in heaven. Hell is just heaven for bad people. So you want to become something. You want to become a god. In Buddhism, we want to become sky gods. In Christianity, they want to become with God in this mythical place called heaven. The desire to be something that we're not. And this obsession can play out in a lot of weird ways. We become phony, counterfeit in our own being because we desire to be something else. You see a lot of this in New Age thinking. Because of skeptical doubt, you go to a psychic reader. The psychic reader tells you about, you know, how wonderful you are and how you're going to get all these wonderful things, and you spend the rest of your life worried about becoming this wonderful critter the psychic told you about. Then, and lastly, there is underneath all this the obsession with ignorance. Out of ignorance comes all these other obsessions. The obsession with ignorance is really cool when you stop and look at it. It's the idea, this is truth and reality. I don't like truth and reality, so what do I do with it? I either have to accept it, I could ignore it. That's the very meaning of ignorance. Most of us do ignore what's going on around us. Or I can recognize that's going on and then fit it into my scheme of things by twisting it to fit into the slot that I have created for it. And these are how the obsessions work. Now, one of the weird things about the obsession is if one arises, they all arise. They're all there in varying degrees. One of them is going to be predominant, but underneath that one, they're all going to be there. It's like the guy that wants to be a contemporary Don Juan. He has an obsession with becoming Don Juan. Why? Because there's an obsession with sensual pleasure. Why would that be there? Because there's an aversion to being lonely. Okay, and that's there because there is the tendency toward conceit. I'm not as good as anybody else because I don't have a relationship. Therefore, I'm substandard. I see a lot of this in Sweden. Swedes are like this. I'm not in a relationship, therefore I'm not whole. Women who don't have children are not truly women. Well, that's the conceit coming in. We're going to define things differently than what they are. It's a wrong view, which is the next one. Because of the wrong view, we have doubt. We start speculating. We don't doubt. We don't have faith in reality and the process of life. And then we want to become, of course, something else. And it all comes out of ignorance. So they're all related, but one is going to be dominant. And because ignorance is always with us as a latent tendency, you can be a fully blown Buddha, and that ignorance is, that seed is still going to be in there somewhere. How do we know this? Because the Buddha said not only does he see suffering, but he feels it too. This is the historical Buddha who said this. Wow, what a trip. A Buddha is human. Until the parinirvana, and then they become something greater than human. Anyway, those are the tendencies. Now the tendencies are, if one's present, they're all present. It's just like the precepts. You'd have 5 precepts if you're a lay person. You have more if you're ordained. You can have 8, 10, 16, 21, 48, 300, or 250. You can have a lot of precepts. But the interesting thing is you break one, you've broken them all to a certain degree. Obsessions, you have one, you have them all. Wearing black, you have one color black, you have all black. Red, you have one color red. All red is there. All colors exist in red as well to a certain degree or another. Don't believe it? Look at a red piece of cloth and stare at it. Use it as your object of meditation. It's called Kasina meditation. It's a very ancient form of jhana practice. And while you're staring at that red, all the other colors in the rainbow start manifesting. It's not a trick of the eye. It's because everything is included in this very moment. And that is the teaching of the Lotus Sutra. Now, we live in a Saha world. Saha means we take it to mean candy store world. It doesn't really mean that. It means the world that we have to endure. And this world that we have to endure has traditionally 6 realms in it. Ji Yi added a couple, 4 to be exact. But the realms we live in, starting from the bottom, working our way up. If you see the slide, the bottom's at the top. We're going in order of lesser to greater. The hell realm, realm of great suffering. The hungry ghost realm, the realm of addiction. The animal realm, the realm where only sensual satisfaction is important. The human realm, where we can be fully human, where there's not a whole lot of suffering and not a whole lot of happiness to distract us from our spiritual journey. Then there's the Asara realm, the demigod realm, which fascinates me, and the God realm. Prior to Ji Yi and the Tendai school, there were only 5 realms. The Asara realm was not in there. The Asura realm was not in there. it was added because there was no way to explain a certain type of behavior, and we'll talk about that later because it's fascinating. But we can see how going through our obsessions will take us into any one of these realms. If you're obsessed with getting your next cup of coffee and you can't get a cup of coffee, you go into a hell realm. Well, before you went into the hell realm, you were in the hungry ghost realm because you were trying to get a cup of coffee. Now, you're craving it, you're going after it, and because you're not getting it, you're feeling the hell realm. Ah, you finally get it. You're paying for it. You're giving your $3 for your Starbucks coffee. I don't know how much that is. What is that? About 3 pounds, 2 pounds 8, whatever it is in Great Britain. Your 53,000 yen in Tokyo. You're giving the guy your money, your barista, and you get your coffee. Now you feel fully human. You got your coffee. Yeah. Now you're better than anybody else, and you're in the Asura realm, and you taste your coffee. It's delicious, and you go into the God realm. So the obsession of wanting a cup of coffee, man, the obsession for sensual pleasure, puts you through all these realms. And the realms are interpenetrating. In that one moment that you were craving the cup of coffee, the potential for hell was there. The potential for being a god was there. The potential for being human was already there. They're already coexisting. It's just that one is manifesting a little more strongly than the other ones. Just like the obsession for the cup of coffee, the obsession with sensuality was dominant, but all the other ones were there too. So, you see, they're all interpenetrating. To have one is to have them all. Now, Ji Yi added 4 other realms to this, where these obsessions still exist. But they're more and more latent, less and less pronounced, more and more controlled. And within these extra 4 realms, the other 6 realms still exist. These are the realm of the Shravaka, the disciple and follower. Right. The monk, the student, the one who reads the sutras, the ones who actually practice meditation, the ones that are have an idea of enlightenment but have not yet reached it, have a glimpse of it, and are on the way. They've actually entered into the stream where they have renounced the view of self-identification of personality, where they have renounced the ego, where they have renounced adherence to rituals, where they have renounced skeptical doubt, and now they have entered the stream. But the other 7 worlds are still there, and the tendencies are still there. They're just not working as hard. The next realm is that of the self-enlightened Buddha, the Pratyekya Buddha, or Pacceka Buddha in Pali. The one who has enlightened themselves without hearing the teaching. Anyone can become self-enlightened. All they have to do is have a lot of discipline, a lot of insight, a lot of meditation. And this is a little bit higher because they have actually reached a place of enlightenment. Then you have the one on the way to Buddhahood. We call that the Bodhisattva, which is a little bit higher realm. They've made a conscious decision to become enlightened, not just for their own benefit, as the Shravaka and Pacceka Buddhas have, but for the benefit of others, the ones they love, the ones they care for, the ones that walk on the streets, the butterflies, the kitty cats, the spiders and snakes and worms as well. We take that a little bit further when we get into the Hongaku philosophy. We also do that for the benefit of inanimate objects as well, because all objects exist in the mind, and it's those mental objects that we're trying to help, because often we can't help the physical objects. Anyway, this is the Bodhisattva realm, and then there's the Buddha realm. The Buddha realm has to include all the other realms, has to include all the obsessions. It has to be this way because you're a Buddha. If you understand all things, it's because you're experiencing all things. It's because you're seeing all things, you're feeling all things, you have concepts of all things, but you see them, feel them, hear them, taste them, smell them, think about them with the right view. You see them for what they are, just as they are. Now, one thing that we can say about these levels of psychology is that there are also levels of attainment where the Buddha is on top, Bodhisattva beneath him, the self-enlightened one beneath that, the Shravaka follower disciple beneath that. And these are realms which have abandoned the obsessions. When you're in these states, the obsessions play no role. Why? Because fear is absent. The latent tendencies only work when fear is present. The human realm, the God realm, the Asura realm, the animal realm, the clinging ghost realm, the hell realm, are all fear-based realms. We're afraid. We're afraid of not having. We could be afraid of not giving. I have one student who's afraid of having too much because others have too little. Afraid of not being able to become and fulfill our desires. The idea that we might fail is very fearful to some people. And to other people, there's a fear of succeeding. I might become enlightened, and if I become enlightened, look at all this other stuff I have to give up. I can't do my music, I can't drink, I can't smoke my pot. Oh my goodness, what am I going to do with life? I won't nearly enjoy Mountain Dew soda anymore like I used to. Can't do porn. Wow, what kind of life is that? So we live in fear when we live in samsara, the mud world. The Asara realm that Ji Yi introduced into the samsaric wheel is important, because traditionally the Asara are associated with ogres, demonic powers, poltergeist, elves, fairies, pixies, leprechauns, these supernatural beings. Tiantai and Tendai added a new dimension to this and added them into the samsara chakra. And let me quote Ji Yi in describing the Asura realm. Always desiring to be superior to others, having no patience for inferiors, and belittling strangers. Like a hawk flying high above and looking down on others, and yet outwardly displaying justice, worship, wisdom, and faith. This is raising up the lowest order of good and walking the way of the Usaras. What names start rising in my mind when I hear this, because I watched the news this morning. I live in Chicago, for those of you that are on internet. And politics are very important here. I read this description about flying high above, looking down on others, and yet outwardly displaying justice, worship, wisdom, and faith. And I'm thinking Donald Trump, Mitt Romney, George Bush, Dick Cheney, the entirety of the conservative movement here. Fundamentalist religious groups, fundamentalist Christians, fundamentalist Islamic types, terrorists. A few bosses I've had in my past, a few girlfriends I've had in my past. I can associate all these people with this description. Oh yeah, did I mention myself? I go in and out of this all the time. And you can see just by reading that description how all 6 worlds of samsara are in there, of the classical depiction of samsara, and how all 7 obsessions are there. So, the very first chapter in the Lotus Sutra as it exists begins with a sutra within a sutra. This sutra is the origin of immeasurable meanings. Wow, I'm going way over my time here. I'm sorry. The doctrine of immeasurable meanings in Japanese is called Muryo Gisho, the origin of immeasurable meanings. And it has 2 senses to it. The first is that the aspect of all things, I'm going to read the card now, of all forms in the universe are true. Everything that arises in your experience is real. To a certain degree, because it represents reality. And that's the second meaning. As far as your experience is concerned, it's true, it's real. You are experiencing this lust, this tendency, this obsession. But the obsession is only representational of reality, which is deeper and transcendent. It's not just an illusion. It'll be an illusion in 5 minutes when you're no longer experiencing the obsession in quite this way. Then it'll be just a memory, which makes it a mirage and illusion. But in this moment that you're having it, it's real because you're acting upon it. It is affecting your karma. It has arisen because of causes and conditions in the past, acting upon the present. And because it works on your karma, it will affect your future. Past, present, and future, all in one moment. All the obsessions in one moment. All the realms in one moment. It's not just 3,000, it's an infinite number of realms existing in one single moment of life. The countless appearances of phenomena in this visible and tangible world are manifestations of ultimate reality. The teachings of the Buddha are founded upon the perception of reality of things. The purpose of this particular sutra is a statement in principle that the universe, the entirety of the universe, is manifesting at this very moment in these very objects. Reality is not some far-off thing. It's not some mind-boggling netherworld, ethereal and obscure and nebulous. It's concrete right in front of us all the time. Our Buddha nature, or the potential to experience Buddhahood, enlightenment, is right here, right now, in this worldly obsession that I am experiencing. It's not in some distant future. It's here and now. And to a certain degree, it's manifesting in this moment. But right now, my experience is with my desire for something. This particular chapter, this particular sutra, at the very beginning of the Lotus Sutra, affirms, in very, very few words, affirms everything that is in the Pali Canon by discussing dependent origination. It affirms everything in the Agamas. It affirms all of the wisdom literature found in Buddhism in a very, very few words. This moment is an extension of the infinite. Mu means ku, in the sense that mu means emptiness. Part of my name, Mui, uncreated, or without fear, depending on how you write it. It doesn't mean mu as in nothing exists, nothing remains after death. It corresponds to ku, like in Hongaku, enlightenment. It's not separate. Nothing is separate from the middle way. Nothing is separate from temporary existence either. It says that all things, all experiences are real. That there are three levels of ultimate truth. There is the ultimate truth which is transcendent, that we're all this non-duality stuff that we keep talking about. That's real. Life is an illusion. Conditioned things are somehow unreal in that they're only temporary and they go away. That's true too. That too is an ultimate truth. Conventional reality is an ultimate truth, just like ultimate reality is an ultimate truth. But there is a greater truth, and that's the middle way truth, and that's the truth we're experiencing right here and now, because it combines the other two. It's the middle way truth. And it's because of this middle way truth that we can work with our obsessions. Ryo means to measure or to estimate. It pertains to the essential teachings of the Buddha. Ryo has the meaning of to weigh and to include. The heart of the essential teachings in the Lotus Sutra are immeasurable. We can weigh them all we want. We can never get to every teaching. We can never learn everything, not intellectually, but we can experience it all. The teachings are vast. And they're vast because of the 3,000 realms in a single moment. All 10,000 things of the universe are themselves revealed to have Buddha bodies. We live in a reality of 3 levels of existence. We live here in the Rupakaya, the mud world. We live in the Nirmanakaya, the bliss that one attains from attainment, and we live in the Dharmakaya all at the same time. Because the Buddha exists in all 3 levels, and we participate in the nature of a Buddha, then we too must exist in all 3 levels. We are infinite beings manifesting in this place. We ourselves, as conditioned beings, are also manifesting in this moment. We can't get out of it. That's the way it is. Gi means meanings. There are then immeasurable meanings about emptiness. Emptiness doesn't mean just one thing. It means a lot of different things. Sorry, I'm speeding through these last few slides to stay within my time frame. So this means that the Sutra of Immeasurable Meanings, in its Japanese word form, Muryogi Sho, all these immeasurable things that we're talking about as far as the teachings of the Buddha are concerned, all stem from a single law, just as our obsessions stem from a whole bunch of other obsessions. Just as our present action, our present karma, is conditioned by innumerable karmas and actions that have occurred before in the past. The Gi part of the word means to give birth to that which is immeasurable. At this very moment, we are giving birth to ourselves, our obsessions, our hopes, our desires, our actions, our thoughts. And those represent, they're symbolic of something which is immeasurable, and that is life itself. So Muryogi means that which gives birth and that which is given birth. And the last part of the word, Sho, means origin. Our obsessions are our pathway to enlightenment, because they are the key. They are the thing we are working with right now at this very minute. They represent the infinite, and we have at this moment the chance to see the infinite, to work with the infinite as it is represented in this very finite obsession, which seems on the surface so limited, so right here and now in my tunnel vision. It contains the vastness of all that there is. And we can work with that. We're not limited beings. We tell ourselves we're limited. Oh, I can't do that. I'm not good enough to do that. That's impossible for me to do. Well, as long as I'm thinking that and I'm looking through my to-do, it is impossible. But the Lotus Sutra, that first introductory sutra, the Muryogi Shu, tells me I'm lying to myself. That everything I'm telling myself that limits me in some way, some form, is, as Ajahn Chah would like to say, it's all bullshit. I'm BSing myself, limiting myself, putting myself in a prison because I don't understand the nature of reality, because I refuse to see things as they are. Infinite, immeasurable, transcendent, manifesting right here, right now, in this moment. And that's the significance of the first chapter of the Lotus Sutra. Enjoy. Thank you. Oh, I suppose I should do this to the camera. And thank you for viewing.